Praying the rosary was never a practice of the apostles, nor was it a tradition passed down by the apostles. It was an invention by a man named Saint Dominic that happened centuries later in the 13th century.
He's absolutely right. The rosary in its developed form was widely promoted by St. Dominic in the 13th century. Over time, the church formally encouraged its spread, with countless saints, popes, and Catholic movements recognizing it as a deeply powerful and fruitful devotion.
Praying the rosary is not biblical, and in fact, Jesus actually warns against it in Matthew 6:9 when he warns against praying vain repetition.
When Jesus warned against vain repetitions, he wasn't condemning repetition itself, but empty, mindless prayer, the kind of pagan babbling that tried to manipulate the gods through meaningless words. If repetition alone were the problem, then most Protestant worship sessions, which often repeat the same lines for emotional effect, would be equally unbiblical.
In Gentile religions, prayers were always either memorized or recited through books. See this today with Buddhism, Islam, and various.
This is a false equivalence fallacy to claim that because other religions use repetition, Christians must avoid it. Because the mere fact that two groups perform a similar external action does not mean they are doing the same thing or that it's automatically wrong. By that logic, Protestants would need to ban lights in their churches too, since Hindus use lights in their temples. It's a shallow argument that crumbles under basic scrutiny.
So when we look at things like the rosary, it overwhelmingly attributes more prayer and focus on Mary 10 times as much as it does upon God.
So what? For example, when we read about King David's friendship with God and reflect on his life, his struggles, and his repentance, are we somehow glorifying David instead of God? That's a childish way of thinking. In fact, isn't God glorified precisely when we honor the greatness of his work in his creation?